Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to this week's edition of the Football Goons podcast. It's only fitting that the best crew around is here to get you set for this weekend's divisional playoff games featuring the 8 best teams that are left in football. We're glad you tuned in this week. And for those of you that are listening live, we want to encourage you, feel free to chime in at any time. We're going to take your questions or comments, especially with tonight's show, because we've got a lot of open discussion content that we want to hear your feedback from. So feel free to chime in at any time. The Wildcard Round was overall pretty exciting, I have to say, with the exception of that Sunday early game. And we're hoping that the Divisional Round is going to exceed the excitement as football fans this week. Let's get it started. I love to do these things with you guys from time to time where I throw something out and we have to debate. And I love to throw out groups of 4 where we have to decide which guy in the group represents, which person in the 4. So we've done this with like the Ninja Turtles. Like we've done this with like Degeneration X, all kinds of just crazy stuff. So I got a good one tonight. It is playoff and championship related. The 4 of us are going to represent one of the decade dynasties throughout the NFL history here. And we're going to cut the Packers out just for the sake of like keeping it a little bit more fresh and relevant. So I'm talking the 70s Steelers, the 80s 49ers, the 90s Cowboys, and the thousands Patriots. Each goon has to represent one. How you divvying that out?
Well, that's one that's tough to just, for those of you listening, like, he springs these on us, these intro questions. We don't have any idea what it is. So that's one that's kind of tough to go off the cuff. I think the obvious one.
Rock goes the Cowboys.
Is that Rock goes the Cowboys?
No, I was going to say South's the Cowboys.
No.
I think Rocco's the Cowboys because there's just something dirty about him. And he always thinks he's a little bit better than he actually was. I'm gonna know that one.
Yo, who's Madden ratings higher?
I think South is the Steelers because he's tough. He's just a tough guy.
If you tell me that you're the Patriots because you're the best of all time, I'm gonna murder you. It's gonna happen.
I think Deal is the Patriots because he's the best leader of the group, and Tom Brady is the best leader, I guess, of the quarterbacks, although there's some pretty great quarterbacks. And I think I'm the Niners because I'm just all skill. Ooh. I got the skills to pay the bills, man.
All right, so I was going to say South is usually our fearless leader here, so I was going to give him the Patriots. It seems fair. I was actually going to give Miles the Steelers because the most dominant group of anything is that Steelers defense. So you're usually the one sturdiest with the stats and the quotes and everything. And I was going to give Deal the Niners for just perfect execution on almost everything he does. Wow. And I was actually going to take myself as the Cowboys because I'm the flashiest of the group.
See, I agree with everything that you picked, actually, except for your explanation of why you're the Cowboys.
I'm the Cowboys because I'm the most flashy. The least amount of skill out of the 4, and just the most flashy.
You have the most Michael Irvin-esque mouth.
I am Michael Irvin. I am the white Michael Irvin, if I can say that.
You have the Michael Irvin mouth, and you're also the guy that if you win something one time, we will hear about it for the next 30 years.
That's true.
That is definitely true. I'm the Cowboys.
So Adil gets the 49ers for me because
by default.
He just gets that traditional, like, workman-like approach. How I just kind of picture him like the Joe Montana of the group. I think Miles is the Steelers.
Calm and cool.
Yeah. It's just that mentality. I go mostly on personality. Miles is kind of built as like a nuts and bolts kind of guy. So I go with the Steelers. They pound the ball and they play defense. And then I go with that smug cockiness of the Patriots for me. So I think it fits well.
Also, South the dirty cheater like the Patriots.
That's true. I'm not even going to deny that. So.
I just wanted to throw that out there.
We're on to Cincinnati.
Yep.
The only thing I'd switch is just I'm in the mood to irritate everybody tonight. So I think Rocco's the Patriots, Deal's the Steelers, and South's the Cowboys.
Oh.
Just because South just
So there. Because every single one of you, that's your least favorite team. I'd just be the Niners because I hate everybody equally.
All right. Well, Deal, do you have any parting thoughts on this one?
No, I liked it. I'll just sit back and take the compliments. I mean, seems fair to me.
That works. I'm just gonna say, don't get used to it for the rest of the show, because
I'll just take it while I can.
you're gonna
first time in 14 years, so I'll take it right now.
You'll be in the firing line soon here. All right. Well, let's move on. Let's take a quick look back here at some things, and kind of by default, look forward as well, because some of the storylines that are lingering for last week are going to push into this offseason. The first one I want to bring up is with the Chiefs blowing a major playoff lead for the second time now in the Andy Reid era, changes are most definitely coming for the Kansas City Chiefs. We've already kind of seen some of them unfolding. How differently do you expect the Chiefs to look in 2018?
So a couple things on the Chiefs. I don't think Andy's going to go. We kind of batted that idea around in like our group text, and it feels like that would have happened already.
Yeah.
My big question with Andy is this is now 2 times that they've given up big leads in the playoffs, and it's because he's let his offensive coordinator take over the play calling in the second half of the game. What's that about? Like, that's not a trend. That's not a thing. Like, there's plenty of coaches who do it mid-season, or obviously plenty of coaches who don't even call the plays, but to be like, we're up 10. Go ahead, start calling the plays, see what happens. And then, like, the lead starts slipping and you don't take it back? Why is that a thing? I don't understand that at all.
And they both got a head coaching job after.
Right. Based on what?
Listen, I think it's going to look different there, mainly at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
And the worst part is that I joked around with South before this. I'm in no way, shape, or form saying that Alex Smith is, the best quarterback of all time, like Deal likes to boast.
Yes.
But this whole thing was like maybe 3% his fault. Like, I just like, is it his fault that Kareem Hunt had 12 carries after leading the league in rushing? No. Did he throw 5 interceptions? No. Did he actually put points on the board early and then they took their foot off the gas? Is that his fault? No. You know what I mean? So, listen, unfortunately, we live in a world where the quarterback gets all the blame in a win and all the accolades in a win and all the blame in a loss. And Pat Mahomes is the future of that franchise. We already know that. We knew it was coming, and now it's probably going to come next year. But that's kind of sad because it's this year, Alex Smith played the best year of his career. And they didn't lose because of Alex Smith, which is usually the case. That joke last year about, after the holding penalty that put him back to 4th and 12. And the guy said, well, this game's over because Alex Smith can't throw 12 yards.
Right.
Well, that wasn't Alex Smith's MO this year. So, but that's the main difference of what I think will look different next year. And it's kind of a shame.
It's so weird that they keep going through the same thing where they have these high highs and low lows, but something has to change. I'm not really sure what it is. Obviously, they're going to get a new offensive coordinator. We're expecting Pat Mahomes to be the starter next year, as we kind of said he should be. And they got to figure out their strengths. And I know they lost some key pieces on defense, whether by free agency or by injury this year. So they got to figure those pieces out. They got to get, in my opinion, something better than Tyreek Hill. He was a nice piece, and I still think he is, but I don't think he's that lead dog receiver they need him to be. And I think they need that for Pat Mahomes to come in as essentially a rookie and be successful. So, I mean, I guess he could be. They have Travis Kelce. They have Kareem Hunt if they decide to use him. I don't know. It's so weird. But, I think they need a big receiver, and I think they need to figure out that defense, get it back strong again.
It's funny because all the things that you guys are saying are those things that so many like Eagles fans took a bad rap for about complaining about Andy Reid, but he never changed it throughout his entire tenure there. And now, he's still dying by the same old habits here, failing to have a true playmaker on the outside. But stop me if you've heard that one before from him.
Right.
Failing to commit to even trying to run the football. Stop me if you've heard that one before. Right. It's just so weird to me that it seems cut and dry that this is a situation kind of like the Tampa Bay situation in 02 and 03, where you just need a change at the top, basically somebody to come in with like some fresh ideas, know how to use these players a little bit better. Like Gruden came in, just took advantage of what was there talent wise and won with them because it was just a different voice. I feel like it's the same situation has to happen while the window is open for the Chiefs. And I'm not so sure that it's going to. And, we're talking about Alex Smith potentially, not being there next year. He's really, you save $17 million if you cut ties with him, which is a lot of money considering that you have some needs on your team. But that's really a cap-friendly hit for a quarterback compared to what a lot of guys are making. He's going to make $20.6 million next year, final year of his deal. I wouldn't be surprised if he was still on the team and there was still an open competition all through training camp. I understand that, Mahomes is the future. I understand that Andy Reid is going to try and tie himself to that most likely, but Alex Smith played really well. So I want him there as long as I can to push Pat to be better, to make sure that this team is being handed off at the right time and you're not prematurely doing it. There's really no rush with Mahomes right now. Your window is wide open.
I will say too, though, what you said about Tampa Bay, the difference I think though is I think Kansas City's been playing above their skill level for the last 5 years. Andy Reid's been there. That roster is not that talented. You're saying that they're talented and all they need somebody to change. I think Andy Reid's done a good job with what he has there. I don't think that's that good of a roster.
Yeah, I mean, they've got some playmakers on offense, was what I'm saying. Like, they've got a Travis Kelce, they've got Tyreek, they've got Hunt now. So, like, they have guys. You know what I mean? It's just they're not using them in the correct way at all.
Right.
It's crazy to kind of go against a couple of these arguments, or I guess four. Like, they are using Kareem Hunt. He led the league in rushing. Like, that wasn't because
it just fell off. I mean,
but it's silly. Like, from an outsider's perspective, like, they rode him like crazy, and were 6-0, and then they backed off and started losing like crazy.
That's what.
And then they started using him again, and they came back and had a strong end to the regular season.
Right.
And then they used him in the first quarter and jumped out to a nice lead, and then he didn't touch the ball.
Yeah,
like
that's exactly.
And then you lost. Like, so that's frustrating, but. For me, South, I can't disagree more with bringing back Alex Smith. And it's not because I notoriously think he's the most overrated player ever. He had an excellent season. I won't take a thing. And it wasn't just that usual excellent season because he only threw 5 picks. Like, he actually played really well. But for me, the defense, the players that are making a difference other than Marcus Peters are getting up there. And the window is going to close sooner than you think defensively. Because honestly, looking at the numbers, the defense wasn't as good as everybody wants to say they are anyhow.
Right.
It's a fantasy football brain, and they're a good fantasy defense because Marcus Peters goes to the house every other game, and so does Eric Berry. You know what I mean? Like, they put up fantasy points because they make big plays. But if I'm not mistaken, they're in the bottom 6 or 7 in virtually every stat category as a defense. So that $20 million, while, yeah, I do agree with you, it's not the worst hit in the world for a quarterback. That's 3 defensive starters.
You need a lot of pieces.
And on top of the 3 defensive starters, you have to go for the agency because Buffalo has your first-round pick. So I think long-term, yeah, Pat might not be quite ready to take over now, although all reports out of there is they're nuts for him. They're dying to have him out there. But even if he's not, I don't think you can afford to have that $20 million sitting on the bench for a year while your defense gets another year older.
And I just want to throw one point out there because we talked about it with Andy Reid too. Like, I think it's really funny that if you look at it, that he ignores the wide receiver position so much, and yet the only year he's had a true bona fide number 1 wide receiver, his team went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Andy.
That worked for you.
Wake up.
I'll disagree. I do think Tyreek Hill has what it takes to be a number one receiver in the league. His athleticism is obviously so is Antonio Brown. Now, I'm not saying Tyreek Hill is Antonio Brown, but I'm saying in today's NFL, with the fact that corners can't touch you, like size is really underrated to an extent. I mean, obviously, boy, who wouldn't love having the 6'5" guy to throw a fade to? Everybody loves Mike Evans. But with Tyreek Hill's pure athleticism, the leap he took from year one to year two as an NFL receiver, if he can make that leap again, I think he's in that 1,300-plus yard kind of conversation. So, yeah, they definitely still need to address the outside weapons because Albert Wilson's doing nothing for me. Although I like Chris Conley, he went down, but that's mostly because go Dogs. But, I mean, if they can add another receiver with a solid skill set to put opposite Tyreek, I think the offense is the least of their worries, even with Mahomes. Because his cannon with Tyreek Hill is going to be terrifying.
Oh yeah,
I'll back off a little bit what I said on Tyreek. I think he's a good receiver. I just don't think he can do it all himself the way that AB could. And AB would do it without anybody else.
And how I'll combat that is his help is Travis Kelce. I mean, it's a tight end, so you don't always think of it that way. And I get you, but they did have 2,000-yard receivers. Just one of them happens to be their dominant tight end.
So let me throw this out there.
But I agree they could use another guy. I just don't think that they need to pay Jarvis Landry. They don't need to make a big receiver splash.
They should pay Jarvis Landry.
Let me throw this out there real quick. Just kind of in summary, even if it's just a one-word answer here. Travis Kelce doesn't leave that game. Are the Chiefs playing this weekend?
Yeah. Yeah, he
was real deflating.
He's it. I mean, he's their offense. They're completely different when he's not in. As good as Hunt and Hill are, he is what they go through. If you don't have to worry about Kelce, now I can bracket Hill. Now I can crowd the box a little bit, and Albert Wilson's not beating me.
Yeah,
no chance.
Yeah, it's the offense pretty much completely runs through him. So I think it's a much different outcome. I think you're right in saying that. So
they might be the only team in the NFL where the tight end makes all the difference in the world. Right. Like legitimately, winning and losing, the tight end makes the difference.
All right. Buffalo exceeded every expectation this season. So what do they need to do to continue the momentum this coming season?
Tyrod's got to go. Yeah,
you got to have a better plan in place than that, though, because it's not.
No. Peterman can't be the answer. I understand that, but the one thing I learned from this weekend, and Jacksonville is obviously the best pass defense in the league, and I get that. But the one thing I learned from this weekend is that Tyrod literally is the guy who will not lose you a game, but cannot go out and win it for you.
He can't win it. Yeah.
He can't win it. And I hate to say that, but Tyrod could probably win a Super Bowl on a team that is built a little bit different than the Bills. If they had
win it in Jacksonville.
Yeah, he probably could. Because with Allen Robinson coming back and you have a legitimate throw it up and get it wide receiver. You have a couple of good underneath guys, a solid running game, and a fantastic defense. Tyrod Taylor can get it for you. But if you have a shaky defense and 80% LaShawn McCoy and no real receiving threats that scare you, Tyrod can't do it by himself. So now they have to address that. And honestly, everybody jokes about the fact that they started Peterman in that San Diego game and almost cost them playoffs. It also, I think, got them to know that all right, this guy is not ready for what we want to do. You know what I mean? So let's make alternative plans. I don't think Buffalo's the team to draft someone. I think Buffalo's the team to go out and try and make a splash in free agency in some way, shape, or form, and bring in a guy that, I mean, I don't think they're a win now type of team, but they need a veteran quarterback.
Alex Smith.
It wouldn't be the worst thing. It really wouldn't.
It really would not be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, for real.
He doesn't have I don't know if he has a strong enough arm to play in that Buffalo weather, but they definitely need a guy who can go out there and throw it a little bit and win you a game if the game that for all intents and purposes, that game was very winnable for Buffalo.
Yeah.
Very winnable.
Yeah, I feel like if they had some outside weapons, they would have won the game. There's just nobody getting open, which is already tough to do against Jacksonville. But when you're throwing Zay Jones as your number one out there, that's going to be a rough afternoon for just about anybody. That's a rough afternoon for the Mike Evanses and the Antonio Browns. Well, maybe not AB, but basically everybody else. That's a rough afternoon. So I think that you're some playmakers away for sure, because the problem with them is that they're like Kansas City and that they're running their pass attack like through their tight end basically, but your tight end is Charles Clay. Like that's not going to win you football games. So when they load up the box, and even though Shady performed more than admirably, you know, given the situation, once they get to the point where they're shutting that down and they're daring you to throw the ball, you've just got to have somebody to throw it to. Yeah. So I think that's their biggest issue is they don't have any playmakers on the outside.
Jarvis Landry.
Is that going to be your answer for everything?
Are you going to clone him?
Everybody gets a Jarvis. It's like Oprah. You get a Jarvis. You get a Jarvis.
I think all they need to do to continue this momentum, honestly, is nail these 2 picks. Yeah. And whether that, because they're picking 20th or 21st and 22nd with the Chiefs pick, whether they pick those 2 or whether they use them and trade up and grab a quarterback, I just hope it's the right guy if they do so. I mean, I'm certainly not alone in thinking the Bills way overperformed this year. Right. Way overperformed.
Oh, yeah.
And good for them. I mean, they took a situation where Miami had a little bit of a down year because Tannehill was out, so they saw a wild card opportunity open up. The defense played better than we expected, and Shady was still Shady for at least one more year. But listen, if you can take those 2 picks, and depending obviously how the draft board falls, I don't hate them taking 2 wide receivers right there.
You think like a Calvin Ridley or a guy like
that? I think Calvin. People are talking about Calvin Ridley top 10. He's really small. I mean, we talked about Hill being small. The problem with Calvin Ridley is he's small and not
6'1",
but he's thin. He's very thin.
Yeah,
I believe he's about 175 or so.
He's slight.
He's slight, is correct. and on top of that, he's not a burner. Like, it's fine to be 175 if no one can touch you. Deshaun Jackson's been playing for 10 years. Right. But he's not a burner, but he's a very good receiver. So if you can sit there and you could take like Cortland Sutton and Calvin Ridley, now we might could have something. You know, so they overdid themselves of what we expected for sure, but it did give them a winning taste. And you guys know I'm always clear with that. I think a winning culture is something that's very important. Guys buy in. They expect to win games, and then you do, even if you're not as good as the other team. So nailing those 2 picks would be huge for Buffalo.
Yeah, and that's the key. They bought in this year. You know, first-year coach, lots of success, changed the culture pretty much overnight there, even though they literally gave up just about everything. So I agree with what you said. I think you go with 2 playmakers on the outside right away in the first round there. And I'm really interested in what Jordan Matthews could bring in the slot with some playmakers on the outside when he comes back and he's healthy. I understand like there's, you know, you're going to have to basically re-sign him, but I think that both sides would probably be willing at this point. So
especially if he's getting help.
Yeah. So I'm intrigued by that overall.
So just quick question for both of you. Are you assuming that in that scenario that Tyrod is back as their quarterback?
No, I think they're going to move on, but I think they're going to bring in a free agent. I don't see Buffalo as a draft. They're not going to bring. I don't think they're going to draft somebody.
Yeah, he gone.
I just think intelligently, we're not a quarterback away from a Super Bowl. So let's really build this thing. And 2 first-round picks is huge for that.
And the way that you handled that situation earlier this year, you kind of hurt your chances of him really wanting to be there anyway. Yeah. So, you know, at this point, I think your best bet is to cut ties.
So would you rather them have Alex Smith or Sam Bradford?
Bradford.
Yeah.
In a heartbeat. All right, let's talk about the Panthers because it's another situation where, you know, most likely they were a team that kind of stalled out because of a lack of some outside playmakers. Oddly enough, they traded their best outside playmaker away to Buffalo in Kelvin Benjamin. So how does this team set themselves back up for the future?
I don't think they have to. They're really, really, really good. I mean, they're really good. Like, the only issue on this team is wide receiver. That's it for me. I mean, obviously every team could get better a lot of places, but it was intriguing to trade Kelvin Benjamin, but I guess they saw what we all saw after the trade, that Devin Funchess is just a better version of Kelvin. So good. It would be helpful, obviously, if in year 2 Curtis Samuel can do something.
Anything, do anything.
They took him in the second round, and he certainly did not, whether it was because of underperformance or injury, he didn't deliver. But get another guy opposite Funchess that's not Funchess. I think that was the big issue with the Benjamin Funchess combo, is we're both big-bodied, can't separate, but are still open because we can reach kind of players.
Don't sign Cortland Sutton.
Right, exactly. Yeah, don't draft Cortland, but like go out and get a deal. How do you feel about Jarvis Landry to Carolina?
He already went to 2 different teams. He can't go one.
I mean, I just get a guy with a little speed, a little bit of playmaking ability. And listen, the defense is good. Another corner or two, fine. But I don't know. I don't think the Panthers need to do much.
I was actually going to say
not hiring Norv Turner would be a good start.
Yes,
that's the rumor today.
Yes,
don't
avoid.
I was actually going to say I know that I already said Jarvis to a bunch of teams. This would actually be the best landing spot. Could you imagine how he can just keep running and getting open while Cam's back there making it, escaping, which he's never had that out of Tannehill or Jay Cutler, anybody he's ever played with. But just his ability to get open and then keep a corner or defensive back off of him, it would be ridiculous. He would be over 125 catches in that offense.
Can I throw a dark horse out there real quick?
Yeah.
I'm not going to go as far as to predict it, but I'm not going to be surprised at all if the Giants trade Odell Beckham Jr. this offseason.
Ooh.
I'm just not. I don't see any way he comes back. So you're going to lose him regardless. You could get a king's ransom from a team like Carolina, who's basically Odell away from being a Super Bowl favorite.
Right.
So that would be fun to watch too.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys, and this is just kind of my own opinion that I've been forming over the last couple of years. I think they traded Kelvin Benjamin because I think they feel Cam is better when he doesn't have that guy that he feels he needs to force it to. I mean, we saw Cam out of this world, like one of the best seasons we've ever had, with Jericho Cotchery, Ted Ginn, Corey Brown, Joe Webb, Devin Funchess before this breakout season that he just had, and obviously Greg Olsen, which is huge. And I'm not saying that it's not, but you're talking about a 30-year-old tight end at the time, and now he's 2 years older. I think they're like, why are we going? We're not going to re-sign Benjamin, so let's get something for him now, and then maybe that'll help our defense at this point. I think they like the idea of having him. I don't think they're going to go out and get a big name wide receiver, whether it be in the draft or a trade or free. I think they want to roll with options for Cam where he doesn't feel like he has to force it. Because you know what? Cam's worse when he has to force it. Cam is statistically worse with Kelvin Benjamin on the field than with Kelvin Benjamin off the field.
I actually disagree.
That is true. That is true over the last 4 years.
That part I agree with, but I actually disagree because I think that Greg Olsen has been the guy he forces it to. So I think that he's always had that.
Yeah, I think maybe what Rock's saying is more, if Greg Olsen doesn't get a ton of targets, he's probably less likely to be in Cam's ear about it than Kelvin Benjamin would be. So maybe maybe it's less of a he has to force it and more of a he feels like he needs to. Let me make sure I get this guy 7 targets or whatever. So maybe that's my thought. I mean, Greg Olsen, you've got to force the ball too. He's a top 5 tight end.
All right. Well, interesting thoughts there. So we're going to move quickly through the next 2 thoughts here. They are a little bit of a recap, but forward thinking here. So let's address the elephant in the room. Do you buy into the report that came out late last week of the dissension with the New England Patriots? And how do you see this offseason play out for them?
Okay, so I buy into it in terms of what it means for the future of this franchise, starting probably as soon as next year. I don't buy in that it has anything to do or will stop them in any way from the right now. They're not that team. They've never been that team. But I do buy into the bickering and Tom thinking that it's him and Bill thinking that it's him and Robert Kraft thinking that it's him. You know, listen, everybody, you have a bunch of egos. And the one quote that came out in that article that I told you guys was the most that I got the most out of is that people inside the organization are surprised that Bill and Tom have actually lasted this long, which to me says, you know, people have been noticing this for a while, and it's not just some, you know, somebody throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping one of them sticks. So I don't think they're the team to let it get in the way of what they're working on right now. But I would not be surprised if Bill is coaching someplace else next year. I just wouldn't.
I think he's going to stay put. This is the thing I think. I think that they've always had these problems, but it's just now coming out. The same way, you know, my two favorite teams are the Colts and the Red Sox. The same way it was when Manny was there, that everybody knew Manny was a goof and he was a drama guy, but they didn't know how bad it was till he left. The same way with Marvin Harrison, except nobody knew anything about that. They knew that, you know, their coaching, Tony Dungy, whoever else was getting it done. Bill Polian was getting it done. Jim Irsay was staying quiet, and Peyton was making it happen, but they didn't realize how big the personalities were until Marvin left. I think this is a situation where it's been a problem, I'm sure, because they all have big personalities and are leaders and want to take control, but we're just now finding out about it.
I think for me, I buy into the fact that there's definitely some competitive friction there on every level, but I just feel like it's so misconstrued and misinterpreted and just so stretched at this point. Like, it just seems so silly that a guy as successful as Bill Belichick is really that worried about who's in there and players wanting to go to somebody who's practicing, you know, alternative medicine or alternative healing, whatever, you know, the TB12 method is. I just don't get that he cares. I think that he just wants everyone to show up when it's time for the whistle to blow and do your job. I don't think he really cares even some how they get to that point as long as they are doing it. So I agree that what makes great teams great is that there is this competitive friction there, but I just think it's so blown out of proportion that it's insane.
I can't agree with you. Like, Bill Belichick, his entire career has just been the guy like, we're going to do things my way. Like, I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about. I'm going to do what I want to do, and nobody's going to tell me anything different. I'm just going to do me. And he's going to let Tom Brady's trainer come in and start telling people how to do things. Like, I just don't see Bill being that way. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying it causes any friction in terms of what their job is right now. But if Robert Kraft is going to side with Tom and Guerrero, well, then Bill's gonna be out.
Yeah, I don't think Bill's going anywhere, and I think some things were conveniently left out of that article, and I don't want to drag this on too long because I'm sure we'll get into it more at some point. But like the whole thing with Garoppolo and like how they made it feel like a cult or whatever, like they didn't bother to tell you in that players have their own like passcodes to enter that facility. So Garoppolo had his own passcode. Like, he didn't need someone to let him in or all this other stuff. Like, that's just a function. And they willingly were going to this guy. It's not like he was coming in and being like, hey, come to me, I'll give you avocado toast and you're going to feel all better on Sunday. Like, that's not happening. You know what I mean? It just feels so misconstrued. It's crazy. So, all right, real quick here, let's talk about the Rams, because this is a team that I think everybody here really loved, especially this postseason. To what do you most attribute the collapse of the Rams?
Youth on every level, including the head coach. Todd Gurley was the most phenomenal running back in the NFL this year. I know he didn't lead the league in rushing, but he was absolutely the most phenomenal, the most special. He had 14 carries for 101 yards, and they just like that's a situation where, like, I know that the game flow seems like it might be getting out of hand. Stick with what got you there all year long, and coaches forget that, and then it kind of goes out the window. Veteran coaches don't forget that. Bill Belichick knows that there's a scheme that they're going to follow, regardless of what's going on. We're going to be us, and in the end, we're going to win. Sean McVay still needs to learn that, and it's not his fault. 28 years old. I don't,
He's 13.
He's 13. I should have went lower. You're right.
He is in junior high. Yeah, I don't have a lot to add other than there's no reason that Gurley, it doesn't matter what the score was, there's no reason he shouldn't have had at least 10 more touches. At least 10 more touches.
I think the only thing I'll add is it was actually, we're rightfully banging on the Rams' inexperience, and you could see it in the play calling and the way the guys played. But it was honestly a perfect storm. Let's give some credit to the Falcons here, where not only were you completely inexperienced, you're facing a team where the majority of the roster and definitely the majority of the guys making plays just played in the Super Bowl last year. So, it's Wildcard Weekend. I'm not stressed. They know they gave up a Super Bowl. So it was kind of a nasty matchup for the Rams. Not even so much offense versus defense or position versus position, but just it would be nice for the Rams to have played a team like probably the Eagles, where, okay, they're also very inexperienced when it comes to the playoffs. So it kind of worked against them there that Atlanta knows what it takes to win the postseason. Not necessarily over the last 20 years, but like last year. They just did it last year. So the moment wasn't too big for them. I don't back off of what we said last week. I think as far as this year, the Rams were the better team. But there's something to be said for that playoff atmosphere not getting to Atlanta. Wildcard weekend to those Falcons is just week 18. It's not a stressful situation.
Yeah, I'm going to attribute it wholly to Dan Quinn, kind of building off what you're saying. You're right. The Falcons haven't in the last 20 years been around, but Dan Quinn is no stranger to these playoff big game atmosphere. He's been through it now with Seattle, last year with the Falcons, and he just kind of outcoached McVay and that staff. They outfoxed them. They found a chink in their armor as far as like the special teams play went. They exploited them. They had nothing to lose, and they just kind of shell-shocked them and built on it from there. So, bravo to them. Just excellent, game plan all around. The Falcons just knew that they had everything to gain and nothing to lose. So let's just go for it. All right, guys, let's take a pause here real quick and talk about our friends at Gorb. We are in the new year, so a lot of people are making resolutions. A lot of people are coming up with their 2018 mission statement. Well, how's this for a mission statement? In life, you really only got two choices. You can either get hungry or you can be hungry. And our friends at Gorb are reminding us of that every single time that we wear some of their awesome gear, every single time that we check out the motivational speech that really started this whole social media movement that is Gorb. You've got to check it out at GHORBH.com. That's Gorb.com. You're going to find all kinds of great apparel for guys, gals, kids, accessories. I'm pretty sure they've even got something there for your furry friends as well. Check it out, Gorb.com. Get all the great swag, all the great gear to give you that reminder with your new 2018 mission statement: get hungry or be hungry. All right, guys, let's look ahead here a little bit. And before we get into the specific game previews here, let's take a fun look at things here. Real quick, which potential Super Bowl matchup at this point do you believe would be the best game?
Best game is hard to say. I think most fun watch is Patriots Saints, hands down. I mean, you've got Brady trying to cement a legacy, Belichick trying to cement a legacy, but you also have Breeze and Peyton on the other side going for number 2, which everybody knows vaults you into that next tier. Obviously, they wouldn't be Belichick and Brady, but a lot of guys won one. Gruden, Brad Johnson is a combo for one. Ryan Billick and Trent Dilfer is a combo for one. So as far as legacies go, Peyton Breeze is no different than Billick Dilfer. So I mean, to separate yourself,
it's a little different.
Well, it's a little different. It's a little different. But it's not.
It's about 50,000 yards different.
Yes, but my point is, when you win 2 as a combo,
right,
that vaults you into a different conversation now. The list of guys with coach quarterback that have won 2 is much, much shorter. So, I mean, that's huge. And then, obviously, you have explosive offenses on both sides. Defenses that will put up a fight, though. So, there's going to be a lot of big plays made in those games, and I think it could be the most fun to watch. The best game, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it could be the best game in addition to the most fun.
I think I would agree with that one, but just to throw another one out there that would I think be equally as fun, or two that I think would be equally as fun. I think a repeat of last year would be fun to watch, just to see if like the Falcons can like listen. When you have these cross conference games, you don't get rivals, but you only play a team once every 4 years for guaranteed, But like we're witnessing it in the NBA with the Cavs and the Warriors, where like a little rivalries form because they keep seeing each other in the championship game. Like I wonder if we're gonna get like a mad Atlanta team, coming out on fire, ready to punch somebody in the mouth. I think that could be fun. And also just because I love when this happens and it doesn't happen often, I think all Pennsylvania Super Bowl would be fun to watch just because, those are always enjoyable. I think at least, when you got two teams from the same state.
I actually said Patriots Saints as well. I just think it would be the most fun game to watch, but I agree with you, Rock. Either of those other two would be a blast too. So
especially for you three living in Pennsylvania, I'm sure that's got to be like pretty amazing.
I don't want the Steelers in the Super Bowl though.
I don't either, but I did pick them because I think it would be a lot of fun to watch the Steelers and the Saints go at it. That's a lot of offensive firepower and fireworks right there. So like, if you just want like a fist fight, like back and forth offense where you could have some sneaky playmakers on defense as well. That'd be a lot of fun to watch. I don't know that you're necessarily getting the best game there, but it'll be a lot of fun to watch.
That one's actually funny too, because they go against what the Steelers and the Saints stereotypically are. Like it's the Steelers pure offense and the Saints running the ball. Like that's not what either of those guys are.
All right. So real quick on the inverse here, which potential Super Bowl matchup at this point would be the worst game?
Titans.
Anyone with the Titans.
Titans, anybody.
Titans anyone would be bad. Titans anyone would be bad, but I'm actually going to go out and say from a boring standpoint, watching the Jags play the Vikings, I think would be like we might get the first ever 3-0 Super Bowl.
It'd be Jags Bills all over again.
Oh, it'd be awful all over again is what it would be. Yeah, like talk about like I listen, I understand the importance of defense, but watching two amazing defenses play for a championship has got to be the most boring thing in the world. Like it just drags on and on forever. So no, I'm not interested in a 3-0 Super Bowl between the Jags and the Vikings.
I'm gonna agree on that one. It would kind of be like watching paint dry, to be honest with you. So I'm not interested in that. If with the Super Bowl, I want to see something flashy, and I just don't think you get that with either team. Like I'm not interested in watching Latavius Murray win the MVP because he had 21 carries for 48 yards and got the only touchdown when he fell 1 yard in the end zone. He was pushed 1 yard in the end zone by an offensive lineman. So don't sign me up for that.
Yeah. Anytime the Gruden Grinder Award is going to go to the entire offensive line, I'm out.
All right. I feel like that's going to be fairly unanimous there. So let's move on from that and get into some of these game previews. Last week, we didn't do great. I'll tell you that. I'm
still looking for my first postseason victory. I know that.
I went 2-2.
Yeah. So
Rocco
and Deal go 2-2. I went 1-3. Thanks to the Jaguars eking that thing out. And Miles went 0 for last week, being the daring one who took a little bit more, took some chances. So
yeah, wrong route. You could say it. I took the wrong route.
Yeah, you took the chances on the two that actually were supposed to win.
You done messed up, Aaron.
You done messed up, Aaron.
All right, let's talk about game one. Falcons.
Whole room's gonna feel my wrath.
Oh, we're going down a downward spiral here if I don't get this thing going. So Falcons at Eagles, first game Saturday. Right now on the Twitter at Football Goons, the poll results right now, we've got 67% are going with the Eagles at home over the Falcons. Who wins this game and why?
I think it's I said it earlier on this year. It's really, really, really underrated how good the Eagles have been at home. So I'm going to go with the Eagles. I think that defense steps up big. I think Nick Foles doesn't make any mistakes, and the running game does just enough to keep you guys, going on to the conference championship.
I picked the Eagles because I think they kind of rally for the cause here. You guys have said about how they had those speeches, and I think that they just rally around Carson because even though he's not playing, he deserves a ring after this season. So I think they just rally together and they say, you know what, despite the odds, we're going to win this thing.
Yeah, I think this game, to kind of steal a quote here, this is going to be bowling shoe ugly.
Wow.
I think that the Eagles offense is going to be able to do a little bit, but the Falcons are playing so fast right now and just flying around on defense and kind of capturing a little bit of what they did in the postseason last year. And they're kind of coming into that at the right time. And I think they're going to present just enough of a problem to like really keep this thing from getting out of hand. I think we're going to see some of the same struggles that we have from Matt Ryan. And I think that we all know that if there's a team in the league that could kind of slow down Freeman and Coleman and really prevent them from doing what we know they can, it's this Eagles front seven, who was the #1 rush defense in the league this year. So I like the Eagles here. I actually do like it to be like a 10 to 12 point victory. I think that they're going to be able to establish the run and kind of get out to a lead and just kind of lead from out in front in this game. And I don't think Matt Ryan's going to really be able to do enough to bring the Falcons back.
I think that you're right on that. I think that the Falcons are actually a better team, but I think that it's the excitement and the adrenaline that are gonna do it. And I don't think they are with Carson. I think they're the better team. But right now, I think the Falcons are the better team. But this is one of those cases where, like, those times when the grandma gets the adrenaline and picks up a car because there's like a dying cat underneath of it. I think this is one of those times.
Wow.
we're gonna watch that.
Well,
I'm not sure how to follow that.
Who's gonna pick up the Nick Foles dying cat?
A grandma.
I'm going to go with the Eagles as well here. Fully prepared to be wrong. I mean,
I say that too.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen here, and we could absolutely. I know that the Eagles players are a more veteran team than the Rams, but the coaching situation is very similar to last week, where this is Doug Peterson's first playoff game as a head coach. So we'll see how. He made his mark this year with going for it on fourth downs and being a little bit unconventional. If he coaches scared, then I'm absolutely out on this pick. The Falcons will win, and I don't think it'll be particularly close. I do think the demise of Nick Foles is vastly overrated. We're looking at, he came in that Rams game, led 2 field goal drives, and then sealed the game with a clutch third down throw. Came out the next week in a must-win against the Giants and threw 4 touchdown passes. And then I think the team as a whole kind of went in the tank for 2 weeks because they knew they were going to beat either the Raiders or the Cowboys. And I think one of my favorite things I saw was everybody's killing Nick Foles for not scoring against Dallas. In the first quarter, he puts a slant on the money to Torrey Smith that Torrey drops. If he catches that ball and scores, which he would have, the Eagles are up 7-0 after 2 drives. Nick is pulled from the game. Everybody feels great. So, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that they're going to win 38-3 kind of thing, but I do believe that if they play the game that they've been playing all year, I think they are the better team, even without Wentz. So they'll win that game. And it's more because, like South said, I think you can neutralize Freeman Coleman. Julio's going to get his. I actually won't be surprised at all if we get virtually an exact same game as the Eagles-Falcons played in Philadelphia last year when the Falcons were better and the Eagles were worse, and the Eagles still won that game. So I'm going Philly.
All right, let's talk about the next game on the docket here. We've got the Titans at the Patriots on the Twitter. I think this is more an example of Patriots haters out there. This game also has the least amount of votes among our voters as well, so that's contributing to it. But 63% of voters at Football Goons on Twitter are taking the Titans in this game.
Stop it.
Rocco voted 38 times for the Titans.
Rocco texted his entire family and all of Long Island voted.
He actually made up email addresses to go on to vote.
He texted all of his Long Island family and said, Mariota, he's Italian. Go vote for him.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that
Don't say the Titans.
the Titans have the exact type of makeup to go out and beat the Patriots because they are excellent at running the ball when they commit to it. With that being said, I'm going to take the Patriots by 30. This is, I mean, I said it before when we were talking about the Patriots. Nothing distracts them when they get in this mode. Like, they've won 5 Super Bowls. They lost 2. And in both of those games, like, basically Tom left with the lead. You know what I mean? Like, other than like a 20-second Hail Mary attempt to Randy Moss, in the second one or in the first one, like, he left both those games with the lead. And Eli made amazing plays on the stretch to win them. The dude should have 7 Super Bowls right now. And I say that as the most bitter man on the planet. Like, this is not close. It's the Patriots.
Yeah, I think they just had their entire fire fueled the last week and a half. A team that needs no bulletin board material just got a plethora of it. The Titans, look, it took everything that they had to kind of knock out the Chiefs last week. It was ugly at times. You really can't play that type of game when you go into Foxborough. It's just a totally different kind of monster. I don't think the Patriots are going to kill them. I think this is probably like a 10-point win for the Patriots, which, it's tighter than most people are going to expect, but I can't be the guy that takes the Titans in this game. I can't do it.
I'm taking the Patriots because the Titans are the dying cat under the car. there's no grandma saving them.
I do think if Mariota plays like his absolute best, they can keep this really interesting. But again, I'm just not going to take the Titans in Foxborough against Tom Brady. I'm just not.
I will say this. No one in America will be happier if the Titans pull this upset.
Well, you'll have to fight that out with our boy King Reed over on YouTube right now. He's challenging you to tighten up this week. So,
hey! First of all, nobody would tighten up more than me. Okay, they got my second favorite quarterback in the NFL. The 3 of you know how much I love Mariota. Listen, King Reed, don't challenge me. I'll tighten up in a heartbeat just to go against the Pats.
All right, Jaguars at Steelers, Sunday early game. Please, Lord, do not let this be an ugly early Sunday game again involving the Jaguars. I don't suspect that it's going to be. According to the Twitter, at Football Goons on the Twitter, we've got 60-40 in favor of the Jaguars right now. Who are you going with and why?
I'm going to agree with our Twitter poll. I'm going to go with Jacksonville to win this game. I think Fournette hits them where they're hurting. As far as Pittsburgh's defense, with Ryan Shazier out, I'm just not sure they have the guns, what it takes to stop Fournette enough. And I absolutely, and I know what I'm saying here, I absolutely think Jalen Ramsey takes Antonio Brown out of this game. And by out of this game, not 2 catches for 17 yards, not what I'm saying. But if you can turn Antonio Brown into a mortal and allow the rest of your team to focus on Le'Veon Bell, Ben is not what he's been. And I know he's better at home, but Jacksonville already won there once this year, so they're clearly not scared of that crowd. I actually think Pittsburgh is one and done here. I'm going with Jacksonville.
How many? Give me the stats for AB.
I'll give him about a 5 for 60.
No score.
Basically, you're saying keep him out of the end zone.
Yeah, no score. He will not score. But like, there's still like I don't expect Julio Jones to score on Saturday, but I do expect like a 9 for 160 kind of line. So, but I don't think Brown can do that. Jalen Ramsey is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Anybody else jumping on the Jaguars? Anybody feeling froggy?
I'm not jumping on the Jaguars. I picked the Steelers. I don't even think it's going to be a close game. I know the Jags defense has played pretty tough. I know Leo's the man, but I know they already won there decidingly this season, but I don't see any way the Steelers lose at home against the Jaguars in the playoffs. I just can't see it happening.
Here's my biggest argument. I know the Steelers are hurting a little bit. I actually think the Steelers have a better defense than Buffalo in total. And
yeah, sure.
and in Jacksonville, Buffalo just held them to 10 points. Blake Bortles threw less than 100 yards. Yes, he ran for 88, but that was more like for his life,
Right.
Blake Bortles can't have that type of game against the Steelers and have that be a victory. So I like the Steelers here just because, once again, I can't take Blake Bortles in the playoffs. I just can't do it. Like I know, like eventually,
He's
if
never
he keeps,
lost. He's never ever lost in the playoffs.
I know eventually, if he keeps winning, we'll have to stop saying that. But I mean, he beat the Bills in Jacksonville. It's a lot different than beating the Steelers in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, a win's a win. No one's going to remember 5 years from now how he did it. Just going to remember that
Rocco will.
I will. I'm going to say.
He's
160 total yards.
Rocco will, because he actually said that Mariota is his second favorite quarterback. Blake Bortles is his first.
Behind Blake. Yep.
He is the
will fight you.
Founder and card carrying member of the Blake Bortles fan club. So listen, I really, really, really am kind of on the fence with this game. And I think the deciding factor for me is the fact that when the Jaguars
we're talking about the Jaguars.
The Jaguars went there earlier this year. It took 2 pick sixes basically for them to beat the Steelers at an earlier point in the season. Obviously, I get that. So the Steelers are still trying to kind of figure out what they are offensively at that point as far as the passing game. Really kind of before Juju came into his own. That's the only reason why I'm going with the Steelers here. I just don't think you're going to repeat that same defensive performance. And I'm giving a ton of credit to the Jaguars because they've been fantastic. They're going to keep them in this game. I do believe that they're going to keep Roethlisberger and that Steelers offense off the field and just eat up as much clock as they can and just try and sustain drives. I just think that they're going to have a hard time converting when it comes down to it, and that's what's going to put the Steelers over the top. I think it's going to be an ugly, low-scoring game, but I think the Steelers pull it out at home. All right, last game of the weekend is the Saints at the Vikings. A lot of people looking forward to this one, feeling like this might be the best game of the entire weekend. We actually have this 100% of voters have taken the Vikings on Twitter. How does this one play out?
I am going to go against our fans. I think the Saints have something special. I think they are the more balanced offensive team. Obviously, the Vikings defense is amazing, but I think that the Saints can just as easily shut down what the Vikings are doing on offense right now. Marshawn Lattimore has been amazing, defensive rookie of the year. Their run defense is overlooked a lot because it's not the staple of their team, but they have been better than average. And I just think that the Saints can beat you in too many different ways offensively. You take Ingram out of the game, you still got Kamara. You take Kamara out of the game, Drew Brees is still Drew Brees. You take Drew Brees out of the game, well, you got the best two-headed backfield in the NFL this year. So I just think that the Saints are too powerful on offense when it's all said and done and can beat you too many ways. So I'm going to go with the Saints.
I disagree with you. I've been, maybe.
Well, you're wrong.
Right. I've been on Minnesota
Since
all year.
Preseason.
Preseason, I picked them to win the North. I was the only one of us to do that. I have to tip my cap to me after going 0-4 last week and let the listeners know I can get something right. Week 1, the Vikings won by 10. I'm not going to put a ton of stock into that.
That's not even the same team.
Yeah, it was Sam Bradford and it was not Alvin Kamara. So I mean it's very very different situation. Cook. All right, correct. So I'm not hanging my hat on that too much. What I am looking at is I think the Vikings are easily the best defense in the league. They were number 1 total. They were number 1 in points allowed this season. And while, the Saints are great on offense, and I'm not brushing that off. They're incredible. What I'm worried about is their defense I don't think Carolina's offense is really all that much better than Minnesota's. Very, very different offenses, but I don't think it's that much better. And the Panthers had 6 scoring drives just last week. Their issue was they refused to convert when they were inside the red zone. They kicked four field goals, 3 of which were pretty short. So I just think the Saints' early season success on defense, I said this last week when I picked them to lose to the Panthers, the early season success has really faded off. Their defense is very, very average right now. And I just think Minnesota's defense can still hold a great Saints offense under 20 points. And I don't think the Saints can hold the Vikings under 20. Case Keenum's doing something special there. So I'm taking Minnesota. And if nothing more, it's really a coin flip for me. I'm going with the home crowd.
Yeah, I agree. This is a no-brainer to me that it's Vikings for a lot of the same reasons. Look, the Saints were very opportunistic early in the season. Their defense was so productive because they were taking the ball away and scoring with it at a crazy clip. And it was just not really sustainable. It kind of kept them in our minds. It was very fantasy relevant. I just don't see them maintaining that same level of play at this point in the season. I'm basically scared of, Lattimore. Just don't throw it at him. Like, you want to beat the Saints, don't throw it at Lattimore. That's
let him take Thielen out of the game, and Stephon Diggs should be a DFS play if you're still playing DFS.
Absolutely.
Stephon Diggs is going to eat.
So what I hear you saying is you trust Case Keenum to escape their best corner more than you trust Drew Brees to escape their best corner.
I mean, he can only play their best corner can only play one guy, like only one side of the field. So like the Vikings have Xavier Rhodes, but then they have like a fantastic front seven. They're the number 2 rush defense in the league. And everybody's kind of assuming the Saints are going to go in and run the ball on them. And that's not a given. They've tied for like the second fewest rushing touchdowns given up this year, second fewest yards given up this year. Their rush defense has been phenomenal. And I think, we kind of take this home element out of it. Drew Brees has 1 career playoff road win, and that was largely in part due to like an insane penalty on a kickoff against the Eagles in 2013. He threw the ball away left and right in that game, and he's been pretty bad or average on the road in the playoffs for his career. So, listen, the Vikings defense is really good. I agree with Miles. We're not giving them nearly enough credit as an entire unit for what they're going to be able to do. Plus, like, those people dress up in like medieval gear and blow giant horns. Like, it's going to be loud in that building. It's going to be hard to function. I actually think this is the biggest blowout of the weekend.
Wow. I can't go there, but wow.
I just don't see any way the Saints don't win. I can't sit here and say that Case Keenum and Latavius Murray are going to beat Drew Brees and the best running game in the league. I just can't do it. I said last week that they won when Alvin Kamara had 23 yards rushing and Mark Ingram had 22 yards rushing because they still have Drew Brees. Like, I understand they have a great defense, but I don't think they can take away both parts of that great offense and outscore them. I understand that their defense is better than the Saints by a lot, but I think the Saints are good enough to hold Case Keenum and Latavius Murray in check.
At what point do we we got to put some emphasis on the fact that the Vikings have never played a playoff game. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is Case Keenum's first playoff game. This is Latavius Murray's first playoff game. Like there's just too much here that that stat you shared with us the other day, Miles, about the discrepancy of playoff starts between the quarterbacks that's gotta mean something. It just has to. Yeah,
that's only this game. All 4 games this week is a huge playoff start discrepancy between the 2 quarterbacks. This is Brees' 12th, and it's Keenum's first. I read this today, actually, after I sent that stat to you guys. Only once in NFL history has a guy making his first playoff start at quarterback beaten a guy making 10 or more, and that was Tebow over Roethlisberger in that overtime Broncos game.
That's so perfect.
But I think we're staring. I just think we're staring at, and I know I've used the first, the Rams-Falcons game, the first playoff versus experience, and that's certainly what we're running up into here to a point because the Saints haven't been to the playoffs in 4 years either. So it's really like Breeze that's been there before. But we're talking about Keenum and Murray, Keenum and blah, blah. Well, they're 10th in the league in scoring. People haven't been stopping them.
Right.
And I'm not, it's not like they're going up against Jacksonville's defense. Saints defense is very average, so they're putting up points on every team they're playing.
Yeah, look, I get what you're saying about Drew Brees, but like, I think the issue is that the Vikings don't have household names on defense, like Linval Joseph, Everson Griffin, Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks, Ben Gideon. Like these guys are just dominating against the run, and then you have Trey Waynes and X go and give it to you on the outside, and then Harrison Smith, who might quietly be like one of the best overall secondary players in the league, but just doesn't really get any credit. So like, they really could shut you down. Like they have that potential, and I just feel like they've now had 2 weeks to get healthy. And
that's the difference. That's
the Saints have scored 448 points.
I hear you, but what I'm saying, we're talking about, you brought up last week with Kamara and Ingram combining for 45 rushing yards. Well, Breeze threw for 376.
Exactly.
So he killed it. Okay, but Carolina's secondary is not good.
Right.
Minnesota has 2 of the top 10 secondary players in the entire league, and Xavier Rhodes and Harrison Smith. Listen, I'm not saying the Saints are scoring 3. I think South is ridiculous to say this is the biggest blowout. I think this is a heck of an entertaining game that comes down to the end. I just can't expect – I don't expect any milestones out of the Saints. So no 300-yard passer, no 100-yard rusher. I think Kamara could be a little bit of an issue, but you neutralize him with the speed of Eric Kendricks. I just think Minnesota is the worst matchup. I said this about Atlanta last week, where they would have beaten Carolina and the Saints. I think the Saints would beat Philadelphia
and Atlanta
pretty easily right now. I don't know about Atlanta. I still like Atlanta for, I guess, experience reasons. I'm not sure, but I just think it's a bad matchup. I think the Vikings are the worst matchup in the league for the Saints. If they were in the AFC, they're going to the Super Bowl.
I do want to make one note because I heard both Miles and South say it about the mediocre New Orleans defense. They did finish the year at 10.
Because they were great for the first two and a half
but
months.
like that can't be,
and they're not anymore. I'm not ignoring it. I'm not ignoring it, but the trend is going downward.
Yeah,
including last week.
They have to stop Case Keenum and Latavius Murray.
But again, Case Keenum is another issue with the trend. Like he hasn't had these dips and valleys. He's just been good for 17 weeks now. And like at some point you have to ignore the name on the jersey and look at the performance on the field. Like he's doing everything that they've asked him to do and he's successful at it. And I get like, this is the playoffs. I understand that, but
we sat here and bashed the Rams for having youth and falling apart. We don't expect that from Case Keenum.
Not as much. He's 29.
Stop it. He has not been here. He has been on the bench.
Man,
not been here.
Where
has he been?
I cannot believe that this matchup has us this heated. I just can't.
Where has he been, Miles? Where?
It's just
has Case Keenum been.
This is just a matter of like, this is a situation where like you basically either feel strongly one way or another. So this is what makes what we do every single week great, because like we're not just giving you some kind of cookie cutter answer. We're telling you how
they are. Those two are giving cookie cutter answers.
Right.
The Saints are a better fantasy team, so they're going to win in the playoffs.
The cookie cutter answer is that Drew Brees and that rushing offense is significantly better than Case Keenum and Latavius Murray, the guy that we were saying should have lost his job last season and only got a job this season because Dalvin Cook got hurt.
I'll say this. You're saying the wrong running back's name. This is a Jarrett McKinnon game.
Yeah.
I can't.
It's okay. I know he's terrible. So the Vikings probably won't score at all because Marshawn Lattimore, 1 out of 11 players on the Saints, is good.
Listen, guys, if
Cam Jordan, they got 2.
You shut your mouth about Monte Teo.
Oh my God!
If nothing else, guys, this is going to make for a fun weekend in the group conversation. And
I cannot wait till Sunday.
This is
going to get ugly.
Ooh, Sunday night.
All right, guys, listen, we want to hear how you feel. If you want to get involved in the argument, you want to take a side, you want to go at it with one of the goons, feel free to hit us up, facebook.com/footballgoons. On Twitter, we are at footballgoons. You can get us in either one of those two spots. You could also get us right here on our YouTube channel as well. Comment on the videos and we'll get back at you as soon as we can. We love to hear from you guys. As you could tell by our banter for the last 15 minutes on this one game, we're passionate about football. And when we form an opinion and when we do our research, we like to debate and go back and forth. So be a part of that. Jump in on it. That's part of what makes the Football Goons community so great, is that everybody gets a voice and gets to be heard. Even though Rocco sometimes is just going to out-volume you. So
he will get heard.
Yes. Bottom line is we will get back to you guys because we love getting back on social media and having conversations. So guys, gals, enjoy the games this weekend. Relax, kick back, enjoy it. We'll catch you next time.